The landscape and world of football it's changing. It's always changing, and the reason that it's always changing is because all of these leagues they're trying to get one up on one another. And something's happened that is basically become a line in the sand, a huge flashpoint for a lot of different leagues. And I kind of wanted to talk about why maybe it shouldn't be, or why it shouldn't be quite as big of a deal as a lot of people are making it out to be. But honestly, I don't really care that much. I'm just going to kind of lay out what's going on. But the point of what all of these league commissioners and all of the people that are in charge of these leagues and clubs are doing is trying to secure the financial future of their league, right? Whether you look at La Liga, or whether you look at the Premier League, or whether you even look at Bundesliga, trying to guarantee outside investment, which then launched Bundesliga into this kind of giant fan protest situation that ended up, they had to have another meeting and kind of revoke everything. But the reason all of the leaders of all of those leagues are trying to do that is they don't want to end up like the French league, right? It is one of those situations where if you are not moving forward, you are moving backward, even though the Premier League's the biggest club or the biggest league in the world when it comes to finances right now. That might not always be the case, right? La Liga definitely has the same sort of language appeal in a lot of ways that English does. And so if La Liga can lean into that Spanish-speaking world more and kind of become dominant there, then that's great. And La Liga has been talking about ways that it is going to be able to do that. It's talking about playing matches on foreign soil, and let alone playing matches on foreign Spanish-speaking soil, playing matches on foreign Spanish and English-speaking soil like in the United States, right? That is something La Liga has been kicking around for a while. If you follow this channel, it's something that's come up, I believe, in a video that we've made before. If you don't follow this channel, welcome. It's all forehead, no background, and lots of bullshit. But back to this whole idea that if you're not moving forward, you're moving backward. Well, because La Liga, and they're not the only league that's going to kick this idea around. You've got the Italian league sucking up every dime that's not nailed down. Like, they're Italy and in Spain, they're playing matches in Saudi Arabia and in different competitive tournaments, not actual league matches yet, but you know that's where it's headed. There's just going to be there's going to be a first league that takes that leap because they're going to end up making a lot more money. Not just because of exposure and more money later. The amount that you can charge ticket price wise for one La Liga match played in the United States is probably 5 to 10 times what you'd be able to charge ticket price wise for one La Liga match in Spain. Now, is that great that is the decision-making metric for this sort of situation? No. I wish that every league was 50+1 share like Germany. I wish that finances weren't the only incentive for these leagues, but right now they are, right? If you're running the league, your only goal is to try and make sure that the league is making as much money as possible. And so playing actual league matches in foreign countries, whether that be the United States or somewhere else, is definitely something on the docket to the future, which is what brings us to the actual conversation that's happening right now, because the mayor of London, Sadiq Khan, has called for Premier League games to be played in the United States. He said specifically, Liverpool, the club I support, are currently on tour in America. They have big fans in America. Why can't those fans see a competitive game? And this person that tweeted this out, the 4-4, said, leave our game alone. And I could read you 50 to 100 different tweets that have the exact same message. This idea of leave our game alone, it's gonna ruin everything about it. And I'll go back to what I said earlier so I don't get myself in too much trouble here. I wish every league was 50+1 share. I wish the fans got to make the decision, because the English Premier League should be in England. La Liga should be played in Spain, right? All of the competitions in the Spanish competitive leagues should be played in Spain, right? It is the same that all those matches should be played in Germany if it's a German competition. But that is not the situation that these teams find themselves in. Instead, they find themselves in what is essentially a dog-eat-dog world, a world where if you are not making more money, you are getting caught up to by the other leagues. And as much as people in England or anywhere else would probably not like to admit it, if your league suddenly turned into the French league over the next 25 years because it wasn't making nearly enough money and the TV deals started to dry up and everybody else is playing all of these matches all over the world and you weren't, now all of a sudden, you can't financially compete anymore and you're watching your favorite clubs not be able to buy the best players in the world, because let's be honest, the Premier League has the greatest financial firepower in the world right now. And even if you're Bournemouth, you can go out and make a signing for 60, 70 million pounds and probably not lose your hat over it. Now, this is only possible because the Premier League is such a financial dynamo in terms of how much money the league is actually making. It's paying out, over £100 million to every club every year that happens to be participating in it, and parachute payments launching into half the championship, which is borking the championship too. Now, in a world where we are not going to be able to shift every league over to 50+1, playing a couple of matches in foreign countries is not the worst thing. And let me speak from experience here. As somebody that is born and raised in the United States, a lot of US leagues do this, and it is not as weird and antagonistic as you might think. Okay, well, I'll start with NFL, right? And I want to be very clear. I know that there are differences between American professional sports and between the English Premier League, right? Or La Liga. Right, if you're also dealing with this question. I'm just talking about it specifically because the mayor of London, Sadiq Khan, is the guy that brought it up. So that's why I'm referencing England first here. But there are multiple leagues that are talking about this. Lots of fan bases that could be affected. It is really not as bad as you'd think. I am a Tampa Bay Buccaneers fan. And the Tampa Bay Buccaneers actually played one game in Germany. And it was fun. I had a bunch of friends that went. I had something come up, so I wasn't able to go. But we made a trip out of it. And obviously, there'll be a lot of fans that either can't afford to do that sort of thing, or don't want to do that sort of thing. But as a one-off, as an experience, not just a way to kind of expose the game to other people, but as an experience for you as a fan, it is actually fun. It's fun to watch your team play in front of an audience that's like kind of unfamiliar with what's going on. Right, and I understand that I saw somebody else make the point that in NFL you don't play every other team home and away, and in England you do. I think there are ways in the league, in any self-respecting European league, you play every team home and away, and so if you play one game somewhere else, then that kind of messes it up. The solution is obviously to have those two teams play both those games home and away, in somewhere else, and it makes it fairer. Right, because I do totally get the idea that you want to maintain as much competitive fairness as possible. But U.S. leagues, while not the same as these major European leagues in Spain or in England, they're not so unbelievably different. It's not like when the first games in London for the NFL were introduced that Jacksonville Jaguar fans weren't upset that they were losing one home game. And NFL doesn't even have the same sort of financial incentive. The NFL is just trying to make more money for more money's sake, where if you're the Premier League or La Liga, like I've already talked about, you're trying to make more money relative to the other leagues so that you're able to be more financially competitive compared to all of the other clubs. There's like an actual competitive incentive for you to go out and try and make more money, where in the NFL, they're just, it's just a bunch of disgustingly rich people trying to get more disgustingly rich. And I still enjoy the couple of NFL games that are played abroad, and they are expanding it as well. And you know what? The thing that most people overlook is the vast majority of the time, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are not my team. They're not playing abroad, right? I think the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, the entire time the abroad program has existed, have played abroad like one time, and it was that game in Germany. So this is not something that happens to, if it's one or two, I think in the NFL it's now 4 games. It's not something that happens to every team a lot. I mean, if you've got 20 teams, you got 4 matches total that are being played abroad, and obviously this would start with one the same way that NFL did. Then this is a remarkably small percentage of the matches played over the course of the season. It's not the only American sport that does this. Baseball, which is a sport that Europe doesn't even really play. The rest of the world does, kind of, but Europe doesn't. And they play a baseball series in London every year. And that's just kind of for fun. There's so many baseball games that honestly nobody can be asked or bothered. NBA has been, kind of experimenting with this sort of thing. NHL does fun, different types of games. NHL plays games outside, which is the ice hockey. They, right in the middle of winter, they play a couple of series outside, which is really, really exciting and really fun, even though competitively it is different, right? You're not playing in the normal arenas. You're playing out in the elements, and it can be freezing cold and snowing and raining and all this, all this sorts of nonsense that can happen in January in Minnesota. But it is great to watch, and it expands the reach of the game. It expands the interest in the game. It creates giant, awesome atmospheres for playing hockey outside. So all these leagues in the United States are kind of trying to do something different. right? In whether it be playing abroad and trying to grow the game, whether it be trying to grow the interest in the game. There is an incentive for modern major professional leagues that want to have that kind of global appeal to find creative and new ways to hold their main competitions. Now, the delicate balancing act with all of this is you want to preserve the culture of the sport, whether it be NFL, baseball, La Liga, Premier League. You never want to have like half of the games of an entire season be played abroad. That will obviously devalue it. What you need to do, in what you would need to really get mad about if you are a fan of a La Liga club or a Premier League club, is if this becomes more than 3 or 4 matches a season, right? If this starts to become Burnley's playing 9 matches in the United, that is when this is ruined. And that is when even the much overlooked American fans would become incredibly upset. If a team played multiple games abroad in one season, that is where that is where American fan base is going to draw the line. Once, it's fun. It's like, it's a different experience. It's cool. Twice, you're like, all right, why do they keep dragging us to the ass crack of nowhere to play these football games when we're trying to make the playoffs, right? That is when you should start to be, the moment it moves from curiosity to staple, like something that it's just, you know, a regular part of what you have to do as a team, that is when the anger should show up. Do I think this is actually going to happen? That's the funny. No, I don't think this is actually going to happen. I think that we saw firsthand with the whole idea of the Super League, which was a dumbass idea, the sort of power that fans have to be able to shut these sorts of things down very quickly. I think it is way more likely to happen in La Liga because fan power seems to be a lot smaller, which is kind of wild considering that socios control clubs like Real Madrid and Barcelona, where that does not happen in the Premier League, but fan power seems to be higher in the Premier League than it does in the Liga. We obviously saw what Bundesliga fans were capable of in terms of shutting that down. So I don't think this will ever happen. But I just wanted to talk about the fact that I don't think it's a terrible idea, right? And if you are a fan of a Premier League club, be it Manchester United, Chelsea, Manchester City, Tottenham, if you are a fan of one of the 6 or 7 clubs that are like the face of the Premier League, or if you're a fan of Real Madrid, Barcelona, Atletico Madrid, like you enjoy an outsized impact on world sport well beyond your city, your club, even the 50,000 people that are within the stadium, right? Tens of millions of people watch that team basically every time they take the field. And that outsized impact creates this kind of global demand and global spectacle that it kind of naturally leads to, at the very least, these extensive and stupid preseason tours all over the world. And at the most, playing the Spanish Super Cup in New Jersey, playing, an FA Cup 4th round match all of a sudden is being played in Los Angeles. Like, I don't know, but when you have, not FA Cup's a terrible example because I'm talking specifically about, Premier League here. Maybe some sort of Premier League only cup that gets created that they then play in the United States that's an actual piece of silverware. I don't know. Something that they end up creating like that. These are some of the biggest sporting names in the world. You got like the New York Yankees, the Los Angeles Lakers, and Manchester United and Real Madrid, right? Like that, you've got some of the most recognizable brands in the world. And that means it's a global product. And the people that run these leagues are, greedy as sin, and they also understand that it is a global product and there is a huge financial global demand for it. So if you are a fan, right, you have a choice. Right? You have the opportunity to support those types of clubs in a system that is not 50+1 share, so they're owned by some reprehensible billionaire somewhere, and they're going to try and do this sort of stuff, and you're going to have to live in a world where they're at least always going to be trying to do this sort of stuff. Or you can go support what still is that authentic sport that everybody seems to crave, be it in England or anywhere else. Because you already have that. That's what's so cool is you already have that. It's called League Two, right? It's called the Spanish national, like the not probably below the Segunda Division, whatever is below the Segunda Division. Sorry, I'm sure I'm not saying that right. But if you want that authentic, local, home and away, England only, rah vibe, it exists, and you can go find it, and you can go support your local. But if you want to support one of these few big clubs in the world, right, you're going to have to put up with the fact that they are one of the few big clubs in the world. And if they're going to continue to fund being one of those big clubs in the world and continue to elevate how much money that they're making, playing one or two competitive matches abroad every season is kind of it's the natural logical next step that a lot of other leagues around the world, be it in the US or otherwise, have already taken. Even though I feel like I've made this logical argument, I just keep coming back to the fact I don't think it's going to happen. I think the moment somebody mentions this, there's going to be riots in the streets. But I think those riots are longing for a version of the game, specifically in the Premier League, and maybe not as much in La Liga, but they're longing for a version of the game that's already dead, right? Chelsea isn't, like your local. Manchester United is not your local. Manchester City now, it's not your local club. That's a world's club, all right? And the vast majority of the people that support that club are never going to ever see a competitive match of that club in person. And that's just different. It's just a different experience in football. And thank goodness, League Two and the third division of Spain and whatever else exists to give you that local feel. I clearly have a lot of thoughts about this that are kind of unorganized, but I just think it's an interesting contrast between like the financial and in fandom realities and like what people still kind of hold on to their club being in your head. Because I realize you could be born, 5 minutes from Manchester United or Chelsea or Manchester City's stadium and grow up a fan, and that's great. Right. And I don't mean to insult those people by saying it's not your local, but like the idea of the Premier League just being this league where it's just like, England and Raw. I mean, it's like the Premier League's a world's league, right? Your average Premier League match, right, especially on, whatever that TV blackout is being watched by like 1 million people in the United States, in China, in India. Like, there's a ton of people that are invested in that match. I don't know. I think I've made my point. Have I? I have no idea. I hope you guys have a great day. I don't think it'll happen. So this guy's just making noise for no reason. That's really the only point that you need to take away from this.